Community.
We're proceeding with private members' statements.
Mr Speaker.
I call the member for Baulkham Hills.
Thank you, Mr Acting Speaker. Like the member for Clarence, I would like to recognise the volunteers that make this great state, the significant community that it is today. But without wanting to devalue the volunteers in my electorate, I sit here in awe about the volunteers that I hear working towards bringing community safety into the Clarence during the recent floods and other natural disasters. But, Mr Acting Speaker, I want to commend the achievements of some individual dedicated volunteers who were recently recognised for their tremendous contributions to the community at large in my electorate of Baulkham Hills. I'm sure members will agree that Australia Day in particular is one of those great occasions which give the community a rare opportunity to properly recognise the achievements and contributions of our volunteers. And as I commenced my Australia Day activities at 7:30 in the morning on the 26th and finished them at about 10 o'clock in the evening, I am conscious of the fact that the vast majority of the people that I spent those celebrations with were not at all paid for the work that they did. Of course, many Australia Day festivities that are greatly cherished by our communities. However, there is little doubt that the recognition of volunteers is a core component of our National Day. A day that I think many members under the age of 50 have seen radically transform since the early 70s, when it wasn't even, in New South Wales certainly, it wasn't even celebrated on the 26th of January. It wasn't until the Liberal Premier Nick Greiner proclaimed that Australia Day would fall on the 26th of January that we actually started to take ownership of this very, very important day. And one of those great things about Australia that we do recognise, of course, is the volunteerism. This recognition naturally takes many forms, from Community Achievement Awards to formal induction of the Order of Australia, which we see announced on the morning of every Australia Day, and then again, of course, later in the year on the Queen's birthday holiday. Firstly, Mr Acting Speaker, the one person I'd like to congratulate on his award and entry into the Order of Australia was my predecessor as the member for Baulkham Hills, Mr Wayne Merton. Many people in this esteemed institution know Mr Merton, and I see a few smiles from the staff around here who remember the 23 years he served in the Parliament of New South Wales. I had the honour of replacing Mr Merton as the member for Baulkham Hills, and it wasn't hard to find people that believed that Wayne deserved wholeheartedly recognition for his work as both a parliamentarian and within the community by way of an AM. And I was delighted to see on the morning of the 26th the newspapers pronounce Wayne Merton AM. His services were not only, of course, to this House, which were significant as a minister, as a parliamentary secretary, as a shadow minister and as Assistant Speaker, but never let it be forgotten that Wayne got his Order of Australia for his contribution to the Salvation Army, his contribution to local community organisations such as Rotary and Lions Club, and I join his family, wife Olwen and his children and grandchildren in making this great man celebrated and exalted for the work that he's done. And indeed, this Friday night in my electorate, Mr Nick Greiner, the former Premier of New South Wales, will be joining me at a community celebration for Wayne to congratulate him on his appointment to the Order of Australia. Secondly, I just want to acknowledge Jane Cook. Jane Cook is one of those silent achievers in the Hills District. He's known very well to by the member for Castle Hill, the member for Hawkesbury and I, and the federal member for Mitchell, because of the contribution she makes to Castle Hill RSL youth. She's a gymnastics coordinator, but that's not all she does. She puts in work above and beyond the call of duty, and I was delighted to see her awarded an OAM for his contribution to the Castle Hill RSL youth, and indeed to the work that she does in the community in the sport of gymnastics. Finally, Mr Chairman, it would be remiss of me not to acknowledge that today we've had a reception here in Parliament House hosted by the Parliamentary Auxiliary of St John to recognise the Tony Thirlwall OAM as the new chairman of St John. He replaces former opposition leader and Treasurer of New South Wales Peter Collins, who's just spent 6 years as the chairman of St John Ambulance. And we just welcomed in Tony Thirlwall as the new chairman of St John. Tony, of course, was the former chief executive of the Heart Foundation, who's known to many members of this House. So that concludes my acknowledgement of the volunteers that make this state so well, and I commend to the House the work that they do above and beyond the call of duty.
The Parliamentary Secretary in reply.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Mr Speaker, can I just endorse the comments by my colleague for Baulkham Hills and neighbour from the support he has given to all the various volunteers in his area, but particularly to our former colleague, the member for Baulkham Hills, Wayne Merton, who I not only had the pleasure of serving a term in Parliament, but also knowing for the best part of probably more than a decade. And to say that Wayne Merton has been many things. He earned the respect of both sides of this Parliament, but he certainly earned the respect within his community as someone who stood up and supported people who were less fortunate. And apart from everything that is said about Wayne, he is just an absolutely perfectly disciplined and well-mannered individual that dedicated a large part of his life to supporting others, and together with he and Alwyn, they will continue to do that, and we're very, very proud to have known him. I'm very, very proud to say that he's been a mentor of mine over many, many years, and I've had his support, and we're equally proud to congratulate him on his very recent award.
Thank you.